Awesome. We will wait a moment for everybody to join. Thank you for signing up and attending the top 5 AI B2B marketing strategies for 2026. We are super excited to go through this with you. So we will just wait a moment or two whilst everybody comes in and we will get started. So just hold on a moment. Perfect. Okay, cool. Well, look, firstly, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to talk collectively as a four and share really learnings that we've gathered over the last few years with where do you apply AI in B2B marketing? Where do you not? What is working? What's some really pragmatic and tactical ways to be using AI? But then also, where should you still be using the human as part of it? And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by one of my co-founders, James Ford, who's based with me in London. We've got our fractional chief growth officer, Guy, here, who also owns his own consultancy. He is an absolute paid and growth guru. And then we've got our head of AI, Miles, who is also here. And we're going to be kind of tapping into everybody's knowledge and know-how as we go through this conversation. So let's talk about the problem and kind of give that bottom line up front of what's going on. The real challenge for most software companies is producing high quality B2B pipeline is still really hard. And businesses are struggling to understand, where do they apply AI? Where do they not? What should the human be doing? How do they make the best use of the team that they have? And we're seeing that there's these issues that are building, but there's also some great examples of where AI is really making a difference. Whether it's in organic B2B, whether it's in paid, whether it's with AI SDRs, whether it's with content creation, and really the updated large language models have really changed the game for outbound and marketing more generally. And what you're seeing is this transitional opportunity that if you can correctly move the work that you're doing from maybe a kind of broken human delivery model into something that is leveraging AI in its absolute best form, the results can be quite incredible. So let's start with one that we have been working on and obsessing over for probably the last 6 months, which is what we'd call Agentic ABM lead magnet creation. And I'm going to bring James in here to just talk about some of the evolution that's gone on with Claude Code, with Clay, with what's possible now, and in particular what we're seeing with the intelligent lead magnet capabilities that have been getting developed by our team over the last couple of months. So, James, what's the kind of big bit of insight as a starting point for what's really changed here?
I think the main evolution that we're all experiencing and witnessing on a daily basis is that move from AI workflows to AI agentic and automation and agents. An AI workflow moves from one step to the other, goes and collects some more information, things that 3 years were completely unthinkable. An agent actually goes out and gets a whole world of data, brings it back in, analyzes it, starts to prioritize the highest quality data, decides what to do next in order to achieve an outcome. And we're now living at that sort of coalface of possibility. And what we've translated that into for demand generation for our customers is what we're dubbing intelligent lead magnets. And intelligent lead magnets are something that are dynamic. They feel very much ABM led. They are something that really talks to the prospect that we're ultimately targeting. But having been building these now for just over 9 months, we've had some real lessons of what is effective and what is not. And we wanted to share today some of those things that really do break through the noise and start to engage those accounts that your business really should be speaking to, really should have as a customer, but it makes them realize that you're working for them, you're trying to help them solve their problems and brings them closer to you. And so when we think about an intelligent lead magnet, we break it down into 4 really simple layers. The first one is the entity. And so we want to use agents here for demand generation. Therefore, we want to target our prospect account. Now, the breakthrough for us was realizing that if you try and tell a business about themselves and all the information that's available online, they'll invariably tell you that you're wrong. Hey, that's not quite right. Where did you get that from? That's out of date. But if you compare them directly to their closest competitors, you start to teach them things that they didn't know. You start to find the white space, which they find impossible to ignore, and naturally want to ask you more questions about what do you think that means? What can we do to close the gap? How can we stay ahead? And so we want that entity layer to be focusing on a prospect business and their closest competitors. The agent's going to research those closest competitors as part of its requirements. Then we've got the signal layer. What connects the pain that the customer explicitly feels, they're measuring on a daily and weekly basis, so it's front of mind, and your service and your offering and the pain points that you solve for? And what data points exist in the public domain in the middle? Now, if you were selling, let's say, a benefits platform, an employee benefits platform, you would go and look at job descriptions and see what the benefits packages were, and then start to stack benefits packages between your business and your closest competitors to understand what's your employee experience score, for example. That's the type of data we can now get to. We can pull in Google reviews, we can pull in SEMrush data. All of this information is now feeding off the fact that the agent has been able to say, this company has these 3 closest competitors. Now let's go and collect this information to start to create a data-led picture which compares them to one another, where we can then start to apply our narrative to help them progress their business, but from a data-backed perspective. Then at the insight layer, that's where we want to start to build a scoring rubric, that employee experience score. Right now, you're a 37 out of 100. Your closest competitor is scoring 78. Here's why. It's a great place to start the conversation to bring them closer to your solution. And then the final piece is the analytics layer. But not, I shouldn't say analytics, it's the analysis layer. So what's the commentary that the agent is then imposing on that data, on those insights, to ultimately give your company's point of view? But where it gets really exciting is we can actually dynamically change the analysis agent's perspective based on the persona of the individual that we're going to be delivering the report to. So the data remains constant, but actually because we're reaching out to the finance organization, let's talk about financial impact first. How much is attrition potentially costing your business? What does this mean for your bottom line if you can start to close these gaps in terms of employee experience? Obviously a very different story that we would want to be telling direct to the HR leader, who probably has been trying to get these initiatives in place for a long time, but they've been deprioritized because of a lot of other initiatives that have been brought into place. And so there's how you build it, but then how do you distribute it? The secret is building these agents on a reliable and durable stack of solutions. Starts with Claude Code, finishes with reliable infrastructure that we're all familiar with, AWS, Azure, whatever fits your business best. But once that's in place, how do you then exercise it and deliver it to the market? Well, you've got a few options. You can first go out on a full outbound basis, generate 1,000 reports, write 1,000 personalized emails based on the data that's been created, and deliver it out to that audience. But where we've seen the real breakthrough in terms of utilizing this tool to impact pipeline is by nurturing the leads that are already entering the business. And I'm going to hand over to Miles, that's going to talk about that nurture agent that's leveraging this type of asset that it now has at its disposal to really move people through that journey to the point of meeting and pipeline. So Miles, over to you.
Thanks, James. So the nurture piece has actually been a huge unlock for us. This could be triggered by several pieces. It could be as simple as a webinar sign up. It could be a lead magnet download. All these things could be a trigger for our nurture agent. So it's turning MQLs to SQLs. So what would be the main benefit of this would boil down to, is your business right now servicing all the MQLs that's coming in? If not, this is perfect. It's fully automated. We're able to have different goals for different campaigns. If your goal is to book a meeting, perfect. Let's set the agent up that way. If your goal is for it to sign up to another webinar or download a asset that you want, perfect. We could set it up that way. The agent is fully dynamic towards the needs of the company. And as James said, we have all these information that we could personalize the campaigns to. So we can gather the company's posts, what's the relevant news about the company. We could further look at the background of the person, what's their role, what do they care about. We could have very personalized outbound for different industries. We could segment these campaigns. So everything basically what your SDR or account managers are already doing, but at the scaled level. So,
And I think that's the key bit, Miles, right? Is like the scale at which we can now operate is just so much greater than what it ever has been because of the latest innovations that have been coming. Because some of these things that we're seeing here, for example, with the Nurture Agent Webster, wouldn't have been possible to the same skill and quality level even like 6 to maybe 10 weeks ago. Is that something that you're seeing evolving with how are the models changing and how rapidly?
yeah, the models are getting better and cheaper, right? But one thing that I want to highlight is not just the scale of it, it's the speed of it, right? For example, one of the things that I wanted to highlight is right now with this agent, we were getting 80% open rates, right? Because of the speed of from sign up to the first email, it's just so fast, right?
Wow.
You don't get those open rates in previous campaigns.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of the thing here that I think for me has been so mind-blowing, is that basically what this example of a nurture agent is able to do is all of a sudden with the kind of intelligent lead magnet, you can now produce really highly designed and super high quality assets on a one-to-one basis to literally thousands of different people on a one-to-one basis. But then you can engineer the nurture to be as perfect a workflow as you would ever want your best performing SDR or sales rep to do. And an example, as you just mentioned, Miles, is that we get a piece of engagement from an individual and the AI already knows what's the next asset to share or what's the best piece of context to give on a one-to-one basis and deliver it within seconds. And that's just such a big step forward from previously what might have taken individuals hours to research, and sometimes reps wouldn't get back for days. So it's really, really powerful. And I guess, Miles, like how do you, like, what would be your advice to people if they're thinking about building this type of system themselves? Like, how do they stay up to date with the latest innovations and, you know, just like what's evolving with these models as they go?
So something to keep in mind right now is what data unlocks are there right now. Because even if all these automated systems, there's two things that you have to think about. What data do you have? Because there's always a new angle with data. Second is how can you utilize that data in outbound? Sometimes it's going to be as simple as like a PS line, but sometimes it could be part of how you're going to leverage it in the core offering. So that's something to think about, right? And like I would say a few months, there's always a big leap that, oh, now this research is possible, now this research is possible. So it's just keeping up to date what's possible from the data perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think fundamentally, if you're listening to this and you've got a challenge with turning MQLs into SQLs, then really like having a really high performing nurture agent is something that you should absolutely be considering. Now, over the last couple of months as well, like we've been doing a lot more with one of our team members, specifically around the always-on SDR. And I think this is where you have this opportunity with huge scale, but also super high quality throughput. And all of a sudden, like the idea of opening up additional markets or additional segments within the markets you're targeting with an incredible signal-led messaging and really high-performing campaigns becomes very, very possible. And what that means in that first section that we've just covered is that you've got the ability to have really high-quality, intelligent lead magnets that feel one-to-one and are built one-to-one, fully designed by Claude Code as an example. You've then got the ability to nurture these accounts that you're bringing in, but you've also got the ability to go for like wider market opportunities through the always-on SDR. And I think this has been really incredible to see just what sort of impact it can have for accounts and for contacts, because all of a sudden you've got this global reach. And I think, like, again, comparing it to what was possible 6 months ago, cold email has really had some challenges over the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 years. But we're actually seeing now, with all of this connected together, the great lead magnets, the great nurture, the great always-on mentality, which is using signal-led messaging in its outbound, is working incredibly well. Now, that's really covering, I guess, some of the kind of core organic opportunities and innovations that we've seen. I'm really excited to talk about like what you do with content that you already own. And this is an area that, you know, we've been spending the last 3 years trying to perfect, specifically from one primary webinar asset, to look at how you can turn this into an extended set of pieces of content that compound and build over time. James, what have we seen on where you can use AI and where you should be undeniably human in the content that you're producing? Can you just talk us through the methodology that's been evolving?
Yeah, absolutely, Stu. I think one of the sort of primary drivers for OrbitalX ever becoming OrbitalX was the change that we were seeing in the market around the required number of touch points for a B2B lead to turn into pipeline, to turn into a legitimate sale. And I think we all remember the anecdote of it takes 7 touch points in order to convert someone into a meeting. Well, actually now the data's telling us that's far more like 80 touch points, and a closed sale was far more like 266 touch points. And so how do you start to operate your B2B business like some of the best B2C players out there by making your brand, your solution ever present to these potential buyers, touching that full 100% of your target market to make sure that the 5 that are in market are reaching out and engaging with your business. And the truth is we need to create content at scale, but what's really important and will remain important for the foreseeable future in B2B, particularly where there's a high ticket sale involved, is trust. And somebody that legitimately understands the problem, legitimately wakes up each and every single day thinking about how they can improve the solution and really caring for the customers that they serve and the future customers that they're going to serve. And in order to obtain that trust, we need to start where you mentioned just a moment ago, being undeniably human. And so we have to start with the human. And so the content architecture that we've really innovated on over the last 3 years is starting with video. And that video needs to talk about the core must create problems and areas of content where there's the greatest appetite within the target audience. And in order to create that, it really doesn't need to be a heavy lift. You need the subject matter experts in the room. You need the people that really care and think about the solution to the pain in the room. But then from that video, you get the opportunity to turn that into what's displayed here, 90 days worth of content. We can wrap it up as a webinar. In order to market that webinar, we're going to send a variety of emails. We're going to carry out a number of social posts. We're going to make a variety of calls. All of a sudden, we're up to 10, 11 touch points potentially with that audience member, just by asking the audience to say hand raise if you're at that consideration or purchase stage of your journey. And the data tells us that around 80% of people that engage with a webinar are at that consideration and purchase stage because they've gone through the motion of consuming things like podcasts and infographics and blogs, which are much more orientated with that earlier part of the journey. But now we've got this great video. Well, what do we do with it? Well, with the help of AI, we can actually take that transcript, take those sound bites, and start to create actionable lead magnets which support the video. We can also create outstanding blog content which serves our SEO strategy, but it's using quotes and taglines which are supported by the video. And when that video also then gets translated into a variety of highlight snippets, people are seeing the message in the blog, they're seeing it in the social post, they're seeing it as the headline of the emails, but they're also seeing a talking head say exactly the same thing. And it's that reinforcement, that undeniably human touch point, that makes every other part of that content architecture and customer journey more valuable, more believable, and more garnering more positive sentiment. And so, to replay what we just said, start with video, then wrap it up as a webinar, then break it down into snippets, then allow yourself to create a ton of promotional touch points around it, great emails, great call scripts, good social posts which support and push the event itself, then create things like blog content, and then utilize those assets as you see fit as part of your page strategy. The post that really flew, get some budget behind it and push it to that exact audience that you're targeting through all of those other channels that I just mentioned. And now how do you do that? I don't know if we're moving straight to Guy here, but we got just the guy to talk you through it.
Well, I think it's absolutely kind of great points. Just on that final bit here, and Guy, I'd love to just get your input because you're across a ton of these different tools and you're testing constantly what is possible. And video and AI is definitely improving, but it's not quite as consistent as maybe what the written kind of output is from the LLMs now. What would be your thoughts, Guy, on that? Like, what are you seeing from a technology standpoint?
Hi, good question, Stu, and thanks for the pass off, James. Yeah, I think video content creation with AI at the moment is really, really interesting. It can often get you like 70% of the way there. I think they're very, very good at analyzing a transcript, but the thing they often misses is the really hooky moments. There's something that's very, very human around what like brings emotion and draws something in, and AI can't quite identify them. Some of them do a good job at finding it, but what you'll find is when you're trying to push it to an edit and chop it up, it can sometimes pull in little bits, pull in bits that might be like you want to take out for bloopers. So we're right at the cusp of having really good video edits, but I think where you want to be is have that manual human in the loop when you're creating content. Because if you watch your 2-3 minutes of recording, you'll find those points yourself and you can mark them down. So right now, I think it's getting there, but not quite.
Yeah, I love it.
I think sorry, just really quickly, Stu. The thing I think of there with what Guy's saying is time investment in versus potential value out. And whilst, as Guy said, AI is great at pinpointing some potentially high value areas of the content from a transcript. Actually, what is the true cost of that hour of somebody that has a real eye for a great hook to watch the content, find the hook, and then leverage that as part of your outbound campaigns? Because the return on that hour could be really significant. And the loss of not spotting that because you've outsourced that piece of work to the AI actually is a big loss and a sort of detractor from your overall success.
Yeah, I think James makes a really good point, and sometimes AI can make you a little bit lazy on certain things. I know that some of the work that we do and all the research that we put into creating stuff that engages with our target audience, a lot of that work is happening up front, real strategy where we're working with clients to extract what's important to customers. And I wouldn't say that AI couldn't give you a few key points, but often you do have to put the work in beforehand to make sure what you shoot on video is really high quality. And then you can leverage AI as a bit of a tool afterwards to help you filter, help you edit. But if what you're inputting is like a badly structured video that no one had oversight on, you're going to create problems downstream. But yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I guess like the kind of next section here, Guy, that we're going to dig into is an area that you've been involved in for many, many years, managing millions and millions in paid spend and building really successful businesses around it. What is happening on the platform? So for example, with LinkedIn, there's a lot of commentary right now from people in the market that, my posts are no longer getting the impressions that they used to, and it's all changing. Like, are you seeing a need for paid to become an absolute non-negotiable for businesses on channels like LinkedIn because of what's going on with the algorithm? Like, from a macro view, what's going on before we kind of dig into some of the concepts that we've got here?
That's such a good question, and the funny thing is this has happened already on pretty much all social platforms. 10 years ago, looking at Facebook, people used to post and it would go out to their friends. Now, if you went on Facebook, you would hardly see your friends post. Organic reach constricts, and there's a reason for this. It's because as you get more users onto a platform, you want to monetize those users, so you start pushing more ad inventory. We've seen over the last year sort of all the LinkedIn influencers doing posts saying, my reach is down. But like ultimately what LinkedIn has managed to do is become a more social platform. In the last like 2-3 years, it's changed a lot. People are actively going there for content, recommendations about how to run their own businesses, succeed in the workplace. When if you went back 5 years, it was just a place for sort of your virtual CV and for recruiters to hang out. So there's been this big shift. It's definitely got more usership, and they are successfully trying to monetize it. And we can actually see that with some of the like downstream impacts for advertisers with these performance placements that are coming out. But it's just it's a normal change to happen. Yeah. They're going to cut that reach, and for people that want to be present on those platforms, you produce your piece of content, it has one organic boost, and then sort of it drops off. LinkedIn want you to spend so you can be ever present and always amongst your customers. So unfortunately, it's the games we're all having to play these days, but it's a common story.
Yeah. There's probably a few sessions that we could do just on that. But let's kind of funnel in here to the LinkedIn ad mastery, because I think it ties in with a lot of what we've been talking about. We're talking about how AI is making certain things easier and faster, but there's still some limitations. But the reason we wanted to bring in LinkedIn is that we see it as this kind of really exciting opportunity for businesses to use it effectively, especially as there's that kind of restricted number of organic impressions taking place, and paid is becoming more and more important. And obviously on the kind of slide very quickly previously, it's like audience becomes so critical to this. So, Guy, I would love to just kind of get your view. It's like, with LinkedIn, why is an audience maybe more important than for any other platform? Like, what is it here that you're seeing, and what's the innovation that's kind of taking place?
Yeah, good question. And I think if you distill it down, you've got to think, what makes LinkedIn unique, right? It is a huge database of people, their roles, and what they do. So it's a live data set, and within that data set, your ICP is going to exist for quite a lot of different industries. And because you have categories of company, you can have it matched to your account list, personas, and pieces like that. So LinkedIn's advantage is you can get in front of your ICP better than any other platform because the data is there. Now, in the past, what people would do is you would sort of upload your list that you might have pulled from one of sort of the list scraping websites and hope for the best. But what we're seeing with developments in AI is that ability to create much, much better segments now with much, much better research. So you have these agentic processes that will build a much higher quality list. So if you can use these processes, often your GTM person, your GTM engineer might own this, either using signals, research agents, whatever it is, you can create a really high quality list. And that's something that we do at Orbital a lot. We're very proud that almost every single one of our audiences has a 90% plus match rate. We use a bunch of different data licenses. And what that allows us to do is actually match that sales architecture of who you want to get after and a targetable segment. What that means is we can distribute our content to those people and hit those extra touch points that James was talking about. If you need to hit 80 plus touch points to get a conversation, a good way to do that is ads. Now, it's often a little disparate, like the way marketing and sales operate, and that's often where this GTM engineer has come in. But one thing that's always a little bit slept on at the moment is the ability you can push segments live from your CRM into LinkedIn. They're big platforms that have a native integration with each other. So if you have a really mature sales organization and your head of sales or your VP of sales has built a really high quality account list, you can literally just push that to the platform. And that what enables you to do is if you have these pieces of content, you can again push them in front of people. Now, there are weaker ways to target using like the native firmographics that you have in LinkedIn. It's not to say these aren't worthwhile, but they are less accurate. But the way sort of AI has helped us develop GTM functions is having a direct impact on how we identify our ICP. And ultimately, that means your ad spend is always going to be more focused and you're less likely to burn it going after people who will never buy from you.
Yeah. And I guess, Guy, like the simple way for those listening to think about this is basically the audience is almost giving you the ability to produce a super high quality set of contacts and accounts for this like ABM motion where you want to make sure for every dollar you spend, you have the highest probability that your target audience that you've identified as your ICP is seeing the content that you're investing so much in. So what happens next? You've now got this great list. Like what are you seeing working? What's some of the considerations for people to take on board?
Yeah. So I guess we talked about building that list and that audience, and that's foundational. You've got to get in front of the right people. But the second question is about distribution, right? It's how are you going to get content that you might produce in front of people? And there are some really interesting things happening on LinkedIn. So a lot of people throw around this term thought leader ads. And what this is boosting posts from like real founders, team members talking about your products. It's actually just old school influencer marketing. I like to sometimes say that LinkedIn is actually like 10 years late to the game, because when the Instagram influencers started advertising e-commerce products, they got deals and were getting boosted. And now your LinkedIn influencers are getting boosted, and they're sometimes even getting paid for it. So the really important thing about this is it sort of builds a lot of trust. When you see an ad from a brand, you're a bit like, okay, that's just a brand trying to sell me something. But when you see someone who might be, the same as you, a leader in a similar position, talking about a product that's helped you, it's easier to resonate with. So we see really, really high performance on these formats. Sort of the CTRs are actually pretty mind-blowing. They're normally above 5%, but we see them go as high as 16%. Now, that's one benefit from an advertising perspective. But from a cost perspective, you actually use engagement bidding on these ads, which basically tries to distribute them more widely and more cost effectively than conversion focused advertising. Now, the reason this is important is because LinkedIn can be really, really, really expensive. And these types of ads, leveraging white labeling LinkedIn influencers, combined with a really strong bidding strategy, means that you get the most cost efficient distribution. And when we link that back to what James was saying, that's going to help you hit those touch points every single time. I think also those ad formats are great, but if you have a good bank of content, say you filmed a webinar, you filmed a bit of a podcast, whatever it is, breaking that up into like native bits of video, people talking to the camera, authentic sort of lo-fi stuff, this sort of mirrors how LinkedIn has developed into a more social platform. People think B2B advertising has to be very, very boring, but often now what we're seeing perform is a little bit more casual interview style content. And then finally, always using those static ads is a really important thing. But what I'm seeing quite a lot is people drawing things like their own reviews, G2 rankings, customer quotes, pieces like this that build trust. So as you can imagine, if you have this suite of assets going directly to that audience that is super focused on your ICP, you can get eyeballs on, you can get consideration, and get people booked into that meeting.
Yeah, and where's AI coming into this part? Are you feeling quite confident in utilizing it extensively? Is it in isolation? What some of the things the audience should consider with where AI fits into thought leader ads, native video, static ads? What's your general view of it?
That's really interesting. So I think currently AI is quite difficult to get AI to produce finalized creative for you, right? I think we've all probably tried it at some point, but it can come out a little bit dodgy. I think we're probably a few years out from building something that's like on brand and quality. But when you're thinking about these creatives, it's a great creative partner, right? If you're like, okay, this is sort of, people often build out their personas, like all the pain points. You can feed all these things in and reverse engineer to be like, what would I like to see? What would give me confidence? It can give you an idea of that structure and plan by basically giving, I want these types of ads. What do I do? So I think it's a really helpful creative partner, but currently there is still that barrier. You're going to have someone doing an edit on a video. You're probably going to have a graphic designer taking you that final 20% of the way there.
Yeah, it makes sense. So the next part is, how do we actually then convert? Where's the opportunity with paid right now in your mind?
Yeah. So I think we've talked a little bit about efficiency of getting people into the funnel. We've talked about the different sort of ad formats, but you're right, there is always a pressure to generate meetings. Now, the challenge is, the way B2B buyers buy, they don't immediately want to go and take a meeting, and they certainly don't want to go sign a contract that day. So we've got to set some expectations. LinkedIn ads is not going to get you someone signing on the day, unless maybe you've got like a PLG motion with, you can just pay with your card, something like that. But what you can do is you can offer a bit of value up front in two ways. And what we find is like using document ads is a really effective way of getting people to engage, giving value up front, and getting people into your CRM, where you almost earn the right to speak to them. So often this comes is, okay, so if we've got a really high quality bit of content that we've made into a PDF, something you could send to your team, something educational, you can run these as a native format where someone just fills in their detail, boom, they unlock the download the document. There's a value exchange there. You give them a bit of content that's helpful for them, achieving their goals, coming over their problems, and they're willing to talk to you. So that's a really effective ad format. It's just like media buying, good ad format to use is using document ads. And the second part of this, what we found is really effective, is using message ads. So with all these thought leaderships, I've often seen people from businesses that I would recognize. I've seen their profile, I've seen them post, they work for this business. If I've engaged with any of those posts or watched the video, I can create a message ad that comes from that founder or thought leader that goes directly into my LinkedIn inbox. That familiarity really sort of gets you a bit excited. You're like, oh God, I know this person, I'm familiar with them. You click on it, and within that you can embed a lead gen form, you can give them an offer, you can incentivize it in a number of different ways. But basically in closing with this offer, what it allows you to do is really push the envelope for that final step. Use document ads, using messaging ads, all through remarketing to really get people into your CRM. And what that does, satisfies your sales team, and marketing achieves some results.
It sounds so simple.
Yeah, it is for me.
No, it's great, and I think it all comes back to there's a few things that are coming through. It's like the importance of the right audience, the importance of the right content, and then this whole point that James raised about touch points. It's like you can start to see how these different organic and paid channels really complement each other to make sure that you're not just calling somebody 100 times to try and get their attention. You're bringing in different strategies, tactics for different parts of the funnel with different value being exchanged to drive the ultimate outcome. And I guess that's probably the flywheel here that we're seeing, Guy, if you would agree.
Yeah, and it's something that we see a lot. Orbital, we build really, really great content, and what that does, it makes your paid marketing absolutely fly because you already have the hard bits done. You're just ensuring distribution. So if there is a solid content engine and there's sort of an AI agent or team, GTM motion, building out these quality lists, you can easily build the list in LinkedIn, gather awareness, retarget those people and convert them and close them. But the whole thing doesn't really work unless you've put that pre-work into creating the content, understanding your ICP and translating that into an audience. So yeah, we're achieving some really good results with it. And one thing that we're managing to leverage now is actually using CRM integrations to compare the effectiveness of advertising on your pipeline. It's often a missing piece, but you want to be able to attribute results. It's a question that CMOs face all the time. If I'm going to put this much into advertising, what is my impact on my sales pipeline? Yeah. And using a few tools that we have here, we can show that relationship, and it allows us to really justify this flywheel, show great results, and just deliver some great work for our clients.
Yeah, and that unlock of understanding attribution a little bit clearer just helps us inform where budget should be spent and what channels to invest in. And yeah, I think it's super exciting. But look, I guess just for everybody that's been listening in, that we've kind of covered a few different areas, and really there are some massive leaps forward taking place. There's also platform changes that are taking place with some of the examples that Guy shared on some of the tactics on LinkedIn that are now working that maybe even 6 months ago weren't possible. So it's really exciting kind of what's evolving. And if you are looking for any support across the agent build, whether it's across paid media, whether it's across the outbound at scale, we're always happy to have a discussion and to share with you further insights, and kind of crucially, we've also got the ability to show you what your competitors are doing. If you visit the OrbitalX website, you can fill in the form and we'll give you a report which quantifies exactly what your competitors are doing and the channels they're investing in and the likely success that they're driving. So look, we've gone a little bit over. I want to thank everybody that's joined, and thank you to the great guests that you've been listening to. You can find them all on their LinkedIn profiles, which will be shared. And yeah, really appreciate it, and we hope to have some great conversations off the back of it. So thank you everybody, and thank you team for joining. Thanks all.
Thanks everybody, much appreciated. Thank you.